Hello, this is Nancy Ann Turner, and I would like to share with you a lecture that I gave in September of 2016. It's about God's earthly angels, all those wonderful creatures that He's created for us to enjoy. Thank you. The animals keep coming back into my life, and I think many of you that know me know that I see animals all the time, whether they're real or imagined or God sending me totems. They've always been a large part of my life. And I'll tell you, one of the things that happened when I was very young, probably about 6 years old, my father went to work one day and he had a paralytic stroke while he was there. Of all things, he was installing ceiling tile in a hospital. Happened to be their first patient. The first time that I found out about my father having a stroke, I was only 6, so it's very hard to comprehend. Did he die? Was he alive? What was going on? Many of you who have had family members that have had strokes, or you yourself have had a stroke, realize that there's a total personality flip. And it's a very scary thing, especially when the doctors don't even tell you what's going on. And that was the case in our household back in the 50s. And I start finding peace. I start finding strength in loving and cuddling my cats and my dogs, who came into my life and would light up my day. And no matter how bad I felt, whenever I picked them up, they would make you feel good, warm and fuzzy all over. How many of you have had that experience? We all have, haven't we? Most people take for granted these animals, and they try to turn them into humans. They really do. And I have to admit, I'm guilty of that too. But one of the things I have learned is that they really are perfect. They do what they were created to do when they came to the earth. Example, our wonderful cockatoo, who we've had for 13 years and has more personality than most people ever dream of having. He's eaten chairs. He's chewed up wood around the house. And his new cohort, our African gray, loves woodwork. She's also discovered drywall. Oh boy, that's a good one too. Now, we can't be angry at them because in the wild, that's what they're used to. What you have to do is find something to replace that. When you meet an animal, you need to send out love. So many people meet animals and send out fear. And what do they get? That animal's scared of them. You're scared of the animal. What do you think the animal's reaction is going to be? They can actually feel and sense your emotions. Gabby again. When I get upset, I don't have to tell him, Gabby, I'm upset. I have learned over the years he actually feels my feelings. And when I went through cancer over a year ago, because I was so stressed out, he decided, well, he was going to help me out and start pulling feathers. He pulled feathers all over his chest. I had a cockatoo with gray legs that looks very funny when the rest of them's peach. And it's taken me a long time to get him back to realize that he's beautiful when his feathers are there intact. And this is the first time in many, many months that I've been able to take his collar off that prevents him from pulling his feathers out. And he's stayed beautiful. So now he's been beautiful for a week. So we have to tell him how great he looks. Gabby, you got to keep your feathers. You know, they really help out. You do look like a bird if you have all of them. You'll notice the changes in the animals. One thing is, there are certain animals that do not like quick movement. And that's especially true with birds. If you go up to a bird and you put your hand out, guess what? You just scared him. He's going to go flapping as far away from you as he possibly can. You have to bring in calm and gentleness, especially when dealing with birds. Now, we've had our little gray parrot for now approximately 2 years. She doesn't like women. She loves Glenn. If Glenn is anywhere in the house, she is going to go looking for him. And you see this little red tail going through, and I call her red butt chicken. She goes wandering around looking for Glenn. And of course, she talks. She says the darndest thing. She really does. Because she doesn't grip. I think she's flat-footed. When she gets on your hand, her toes are out straight. And I keep saying, Charlie, hold on. Charlie, hold. And then you'll hear about 7 o'clock in the morning, Charlie, hold on. Charlie, hold on. We learn to talk, but 7 o'clock in the morning is not the time to do it, you know. But they're wonderful. They fill our lives with joy and happiness. They really do. They give us strength. And a lot of people don't realize, if you believe in the Bible, or even believe parts of the Bible. Remember, animals were created before humans. Why? We should be asking ourselves, why? Do you realize the whole world could have been created black and white? How would you like to live in a black and white world? We lived through black and white TV, so that'll give you an idea what it was like. But when you see the birds in their magnificent colors, and I was an art major, there's a lot of birds whose coloration does not follow the color wheel. Why? Because they were put together to bring beauty to mankind. They're there to guide us. They're there to strengthen us. And if you really study animals, you will find out, in fact, I was going through, you might want to go, when you go home today, if you really love your animals, you may want to Google, I think it was Medical MD, at least one of the MD sites talks about how animals help you. It's 27 or 29 different ways. And it was really amazing the different things they do. First of all, as I said earlier, they make you feel good. They help to keep you healthy. Bet you never got that one. Can you imagine? They actually add longevity to people's lives, especially if the person is alone. My mother had, you would love my mom, she keeps coming in, Laura sees her more than anybody. She says, I had one man and one dog in my life, and that was enough. Now, I don't know if that's good or bad, but she loved them both, I can tell you that. She was very good with them both. When my dad passed, that wonderful little Peppy gave Mother strength to go on because she had somebody to hold on to. I was living in Florida and she was living in northern Michigan. I mean, that's like a chasm away. Glenn tells everybody it's, because once you leave Green Bay, Wisconsin, and you head where I grew up on the shores of Lake Superior, it's a long way through nothingness. Wow. So it's 5 hours into nowhere. But I was blessed while I was up there. I grew up in a small town. One of the things that came into my life when I was in 3rd grade, one of our teachers worked as a conservation officer. And during the summer that year, they were destroying the trees. What was happening is the porcupines will go in and they will actually chew it so deep that it shuts off the water flow and everything through the stumps or through the branches of the trees. So the conservation officers were out there one day and they were killing porcupines. Well, to me that's not a good thing, but there was conservation reasons behind it. There was the porcupines or the trees. And they shot this one porcupine, and as she fell and she hit the ground, they realized she was going into labor or very short. So he pulled an axe, and he took that axe and he performed a C-section on a dying porcupine. Well, out of that porcupine came a little itsy-bitsy baby porcupine, and he was probably half the size of my stuffed porcupine, and whoever created him forgot that their most important thing's their tail. And when we got him, he was 3 days old, and I was the only person in the whole town. And they must have thought, well, both me and my mother are nuts enough about animals that my mother would let me have a porcupine. So I got called into the principal's office like I'm in the 3rd grade, and I'm thinking, oh my God, what did I do? What did I do wrong now? Because I was a tomboy, always getting in trouble. I got in there and they said, look at this box. So I went and looked at the box, and there was a little baby porcupine. And they said, Mr. Zimmers, who was a biology teacher in high school, who was one of my best friend's fathers, had told them that if Nancy likes a porcupine, let her take it home. So I took him home. He was so little, you know those little tiny doll bottles that are probably 4 or 5 inches long? That's what we fed him with. And he was so cute. He would sit on his back feet, hold the little doll bottle in his hands, and his tail would go straight out, and that would prevent him from falling over. And guess what? Girls are born without quills. There's a reason for that. Can you imagine Mama Porcupine in labor having a baby with quills all over its back? That wouldn't have been a very good thing. But he grew, and I probably had him till he was about 6 months old. And unbeknownst to me at the time, my father had gone out in the yard and went to move the car, and he ran over him. It took my father 10 years to tell me the truth. So you know how devastating it was. But I learned a lot from these animals. If you send them love, they give it back. They don't keep it. they give it back to you many times over. And Porky was just one of the wonderful gifts that I got. One of the other animals that I got was a huge St. Bernard. Her name was Princess Heidi of Cloitre. Her background, she had 2 grand champions, so you know she had reasons to strut her stuff. Her head hit me just about right in here. And if she decided to jump up, she could put her paws on my shoulder and she'd be taller than me. She was the most beautiful creature in the world. She had been abused by children before I got her. When I took her to the vet to get her shots, Dr. Dale looked at me and he said, "What on earth are you doing with that dog?" I said, "I fell in love with her. She's mean. She's been abused." I said, "Dale, love will overcome all." And she protected me. She loved me. She loved my oldest daughter. My oldest daughter would throw her, she was a thumbsucker. She'd throw her arm over the back of Heidi when she was about 2-3 years old. And of course, Heidi was this long. And she would suck her thumb with her head on Heidi. And they would stand there like hours as Heidi's going back and forth with this child holding on to her. She was real funny because my ex-husband had a friend that used to make fun of her. Don't think these animals don't know what you're thinking. He would go and work on his boat that was in our garage, and he'd make fun of Heidi. And I told him, I says, "You don't want to make fun of Heidi. She weighs almost as much as you do, and she's got a big mouth full of teeth." Well, one day, he didn't know she was there. And as he passed her, she got him in the bread buns. She bit his butt. You don't mess with a dog that weighs 185 pounds. You don't make fun of people, so surely don't make fun of God's animals, because believe it or not, they do know what you're saying. They can feel your emotions. And Gabby does it all the time. If I get upset, I know that I have to calm down because he's going wild. He's flapping his wings and he's throwing his head up and down, telling me to behave. Calm down. Be a good mommy. I learned to watch him. When we first got Gabby, I would watch him. And I learned by watching him and listening to his reaction what he needed. And even Glenn's amazed that he started learning to listen. He has certain little sounds he makes. I call him Mr. Beep sometimes. He beeps when he wants to come on the bed and crawl underneath the covers and go back to sleep. Just like, "Mommy, come get me. Put me under the covers." And he crawls under the covers and he puts his precious little head on me and he goes back to sleep. Glenn will say, "Should I take Gabby outside?" I said, "Don't ask me. Go ask Gabby." I know people think that's nuts. You ask Gabby. If Gabby wants to go outside, he'll lift his foot up and put it on your hand. If Gabby doesn't want to go outside, he'll hold on to whatever he's on and look at you like, "I'm not going." What do you mean you can't read what I'm telling you? I'm hanging on this cage. I'm not going. It's amazing. I learned early on Gabby did not want to make a mess on humans. And I used that to my benefit because I eventually taught him that going potty, to relate that to when he had to relieve himself. And I literally can take Gabby anywhere. And he will not make a mistake. And we'll ask him if he has to go potty, and when he goes outside, on one word command, and some of you have seen it when we brought him here, I'll tell him to go poops, and he goes on command. How many humans would like to be able to do that? I mean, here I've got a bird that can do it. Okay. I want to share some of the other things that animals do, and please look up what I told you to earlier. They also are natural mood enhancers. Isn't that a great thing to know? You don't have to go for a pill, go for your pet. They help to lower cholesterol. And they said one of the reasons that may be possible is because people change their lifestyle. Yeah, they run the whole house. I mean, just get out of the way. They're taking over. You're just visiting. Now, if you've got a dog, he's going to like going with you when you go take a walk. Now, that's how it helps lower your cholesterol. A unique thing that I found out about cats in reading this article is if you have a cat in the house when you bring an infant in the home, its likelihood of having asthma is 1/3 of other infants. Because whatever they have, the dander, the things that get in the air, it actually helps build their immunity. Quite contrary to what we're being told today, we have to disinfect everything. Oh, baloney. You know what? There were so many things that I did as a kid. I mean, OSHA would have me wrapped up and I wouldn't even be able to climb a tree. Get real. They want crash helmets when you ride a bicycle. How many of you stood on the seat of your bicycle and went riding down a hill on it? Did we have crash helmets? No. We gotta live. You know, they're taking so much away from our lives, the things that we enjoy doing. And they're instilling more and more fear. It's gotta stop. It's gotta stop somewhere. One other thing that you cat owners will love to know is people that have cats have fewer strokes. They also prevent you from start isolating yourself. A lot of seniors isolate themselves. I had a wonderful, wonderful brother-in-law that had been through the Vietnamese War and came back here, and Agent Orange played its games with him. We lost him, and I think if he would have had a pet of some sort, I believe he would still be here because he isolated himself. He didn't even tell us the truth, which happens because they start slipping. He would tell Glenn that his daughter was taking him to go get food. He'd tell his daughter that Glenn was taking him to get food. And we have to really start being aware of things around us. I don't know about you, but when we drive down the road and I see a fallen bird or a raccoon, I get an ache in my heart. And I tell Mother Earth and Father God, please take that animal's soul to heaven with you. I was driving on the way home one day, and this great big huge SUV, and I'll never own one this size after seeing what happened, was coming toward me. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, appeared this marvelous baby hawk. Way too low. That SUV was going too fast, and he hit him. Well, not only did he hit him, he threw him ahead of himself. As the bird was coming back, he hit him a second time. Well, I couldn't stand it. Here I am driving my car, crying, pulling over to the side of the road, and thank God I had a towel in the car. I took the towel, I went and I picked him up, and I held him as he took his last breath. And then I'm crying my eyes out, and I pick up the cell phone, and I call Glenn, and I said, I've got a dead hawk. You've got to dig a hole. So when I come home, we can send him back to Mother Earth. And when I got home, there was my hero. He had the shovel. It was all prepared. And we sent that wonderful creature back to Mother Earth. Now, I had a very, very unique cockatoo. Her name was Precious. And with her, her name was what she was. She was precious. And this lady says, you're going to have to feed her. And she hands me this tube about this long. You shove this down the bird's throat, and you take this syringe and you squeeze the food in it. Well, I went to stick it down her throat, and she starts gagging. Well, I start gagging. I didn't know which one I was going to throw up first, her or me. So I said, okay, Precious, let's learn to eat with a spoon. I have probably one of the only hand-fed cockatoos that ate with a spoon. So that's how I fed her. And she was just the sweetest, the most gentle umbrella cockatoo you had ever seen. Little did I know that she would be my gateway to Gabby. She ended up getting a disease called PDD, which is actually an immune deficiency disease that happens to birds. And when it happens, the entire flock will pass within 3 years. There's an entire section of the University in Athens, Georgia, that does studies on these birds to try and figure out what this PDD is. Is it viral? Is it bacterial? By the time they get whatever they need on the slide and get it under the microscope, it's gone. It's gone. And yet this disease will wipe out entire flocks. So at the time, we were a nutraceutical company, and I had a wonderful manufacturer. And I contacted the manufacturer, and I said, you know, we need to come up with something that we can give to birds to fight off PDD, especially in the wild. And someday I'm going to see that these are out there. He said, get them colloidal silver. So we came up with an idea that we can put colloidal silver into fountains that the birds could feed on, and it would help to give them strength and make them feel well. The day that Precious passed, we were on the way to a vet because I knew she was sick. I didn't know what to do. And she literally died as I was meditating. And I was given one of the most beautiful visions I have ever been given. I literally saw her fly out of her body. And when she did, she landed on my guide's shoulder. And as she was sitting there, I saw the veil behind her open. And everybody that I knew that had passed came to greet her. I thought, oh, how beautiful. And then we brought her home and we buried her. Because I had fallen in love with Gabby 5 months earlier, but I couldn't bring him into the household and have 3 birds because I knew I'd really lose my mind. Because exotics can be very demanding and they can be very noisy. So if you can imagine 3 birds screaming at the top of their lungs in your house is not really a lot of fun. At least for me it isn't. I went back looking for Gabby when I lost Precious. The pet shop I had saw him in had moved. I'm going, oh my God, I got to find out if he's still around. Because I had made a promise to him that day. It was the day that he was returned to the pet store. He went wild. He was hanging. You can imagine, he knew he was going to be mine. Okay, I go in this pet store, and he's talking to me. He's swinging upside down. He's going crazy. It took everything for me to leave that pet store with the bag of food that I bought for my other bird, Precious, and our other bird, Ozzy. And I told him that day, I said, I can't take you home right now. But if I ever can, I will come find you. Little did I know that my Precious was dying of PDD. And when she passed, I made up my mind I was going to find Gabby. I made numerous phone calls and finally found where the pet shop had moved. Bird people are very peculiar people. They never want to tell you if they have birds. They never want to tell you if they have birds available for sale. It's because people steal them. So it took like 5 phone calls to this pet store, and Ken finally broke down and told me, yes, I have that bird. And I couldn't even remember what color it was. I remembered Gabby's story, that the woman had had a little baby, and the baby was allergic to Gabby's dander. And that was the reason they returned him to the pet store. So Ken finally gave up and said, okay. He gave me the address where they were at, and I went to the pet store. And when I sat down, they rolled over his perch. He jumped off that perch. He climbed on my shoulders, grabbed my glasses, and threw them across the room. And the next thing I'm doing is we're eye to eye, beak to beak, looking in each other's eyes. I knew it. I knew from that moment on that we would be together. And after I got sticker shock, which they practically had to pull me off the floor, I decided that no matter what I had to do, Gabby was going to end up going home with me. So I put a deposit on Gabby. It took me about a week. I got the funds together. And Gabby has been a permanent part of our life ever since. He's very unique. In watching him, I have seen him get on some people that were extremely depressed. And it was like somebody went like this in front of their face, and their entire demeanor would change. So I have been blessed over the years. I have a girlfriend that's a Cherokee medicine woman, and I told Sally about it. She said he's a soul healer. I have another girlfriend that I've lost to death that was a medium. I told Brenda about it. He's a soul healer. So I went to Cassadaga one time when they were having a mini fair up there, and I'm sitting there with one of the mediums, and I said, bring in my guide. Well, I know who my guide was, but see, I don't tell other people. I want to find out if this is really what's happening. His chair was flat on the floor and literally went back up on the back legs and came down. He says, oh my God, is he strong. And as he threw his hands over his ears, he stated to me, "What on earth is that awful scream?" I said, "That's a white cockatoo." He says, "Indians don't have white birds." I said, "Oh, yes, they do." He had Precious on his shoulder, my guide. I've met shamas, and I've asked him, "Who's my guide?" And they knew immediately. And they all come back and say, "What's that white bird doing on his shoulders?" I said, "That's my Precious." Now, in reading and studying one of my favorite authors, Sylvia Browne, she has actually written a book, she and her son, and of course Sylvia's passed away, on animals. And one of the unique things that I found in reading that book was that animals can choose to come back with us to protect us in this life when we're here. I thought, wow, that's cool. And you all hear of when your animals pass, they're going to go to the Rainbow Bridge, right? And then when you go to the other side, they're going to meet you. Well, the Indians have a different twist to that. They say all the animals that you met on the earth are there waiting for you to go to the Rainbow Bridge. And guess what? They decide whether you are worthy of passing or not. I think I like that. I really do. Because when I see some of the things that people have done to animals that are horrific, and I don't believe in hell, wouldn't that be cool? That nasty person walks up and the cat walks up and says, buddy, you're not going here. You're going to the muck and mire over there. I love it. I love it. So just remember, those animals give us strength. And one of the studies that I had read, and I want to share this with you before I break, is when one of my girlfriends who works with horses said, "Did you realize that what they've done recently with horses, they take and they put a monitor on the horse and they'll take and put a monitor on a person, that in a matter of a few moments, your heartbeat and that horse's heartbeat become one." When you stop and you think about a horse, it's nothing but glorious beauty and power. I mean, it's nothing but muscle. If you can be as far as 200 feet away and still pick up the energy of those horses, tell me, did God put these animals here for a reason? Maybe they're our true healers. With that, I'll close. Thank you.